Hello? What? No, I needed it today. Well, what do you mean you lost it? No, I can't. I promised in my last video that I was talking about a captain. I need that DVD. I thought you'd get it back to me by Thursday. You figure it out. Fine. Just get it back to me ASAP. Shit. I'm not even supposed to be reviewing this today. Hello and welcome to How to Fix It. If I say the words indie movie, I'm pretty sure I know what popped into your head. It's not universal, but I think that most people would consider Kevin Smith's Clerks to be the definitive indie movie. That's not to say that indie film didn't exist before 1994, it did, but Kevin Smith, being a talented writer, director, and actor, brought a lot to the genre, and while his films have gotten a tad more commercial since the first one, I don't think mainstream Hollywood would ever dare to put their name on a film where the characters watch a donkey sex show in a fast food restaurant. My point is that Clerks was a very simple story, told extremely well, breaking conventions, and did that well enough that it attracted the attention of MIRAMAX, which was founded by two men that have been in the news lately for less than savory reasons. And to take a small aside, what they did was horrible. But regardless of their connection to later Kevin Smith work, the original Clerks was entirely indie. He made that one on his own. It was only after it was finished that Miramax came into the picture and gave it a soundtrack. But that's what's allowed Kevin Smith to expand from not only his View Askew-niverse, as it's affectionately been named, but also allowed him to work on his True North trilogy and do some writing/directing for the CW Arrowverse. Because Clerks was a pretty big hit, it should come as no surprise that everyone wanted a piece of the concept. And like with many series, a television pilot was written based on the concept. And with all the praise that I've given Smith, it should come as no surprise to you that he had absolutely nothing to do with the half-hour sitcom pilot produced by Touchstone Pictures the following year. In fact, he was completely unaware of it until they started casting, as he was busy working on Mallrats, which is personally my least favorite of his films, but it's still way better than this pilot. And according to my research, when he attempted to get involved, they shot him down. And that's only the first of many missteps they took when making this, but that's getting ahead of ourselves. The pilot had big shoes to fill, but pilots based on films featuring little to none of the original cast and crew aren't always bad. Remember, Mr. Belvedere? And And MASH, although it's really unfair to compare this thing to MASH, because, I mean, MASH is a classic of television history, and this is... Anyway, let's just see if I can fix it. This is Clerks. Not the good ones, though. It opens up with a little title card with all the info on it, presumably for the network that would have been watching it, and all I'll say about that is that it contains the phrase, "not for air." Gotta agree with that sentiment. It starts out with a teaser where we meet Dante Hicks, played by Andrew Lowry, Randall Graves, played by Jim Brewer. Wait a minute, wasn't he also in that backdoor pilot for Home Improvement with Dave Chappelle that never really went anywhere? Wow, he does not have great luck with pilots. Todd, an ice cream guy who was not in the original film, played by Rick Gomez, and Sandra, a girl who likes to tan, played by a young Kerry Russell. They discuss whether or not tanning causes cancer, which Sandra refutes and brings her own hypothesis.
Think about it, everyone who tans uses lotion.
After Randall makes a crappy joke about lotion melting his skin off, we transition in the actual plot of the episode. That has Randall and Todd dicking around in the quick stop, ignoring their jobs, while Dante attempts to do his. Veronica, Dante's girlfriend, played by Noelle Parker, arrives to plan their date for that night, but Dante tells her that he forgot to ask for the night off, so their date ends up being a movie and snacks at the video store.
I don't know how you top off a night like this. Oh, wait. Sex in a car.
You're in luck.
While watching the movie, Little Women, Randall checks out a woman buying videos and spoils every movie she wanted.
Crying game. She's a man. Presumed innocent. Wife did it. 1984, they shoot him. $6.
Before Dante's father arrives, Dante's father lectures Dante about how he's wasting his life and needs a safe career, which is why he arranged a job interview with a friend of his at an insurance agency. Following that, we meet Ray, played by Bodie Elfman, who exists because Kevin Smith owned the rights to Jay and Silent Bob, so they removed a letter and got rid of Silent Bob. Though I can't help but wonder what a bootleg Silent Bob would be. Quiet Chris? Talkative Steve? Anyway, Ray is trying to shoplift beer, but Dante stops him. In a scene that has the laugh track going for nearly the entire run of it, yet I didn't find a single joke that was actually funny.
You know the law, Ray. No fake ID, no beer. Now get out of here.
Randall, Todd, and Veronica come back to the quick stop after the movie, and when Veronica goes to the bathroom, which only reminds me of the vastly more interesting bathroom scene in the film, an old high school classmate, Cliff, played by Andre Nemec, shows up to taunt Dante for working in the store. Think of a vastly inferior Jason Lee scene from Clerks 2. Dante looks like he wants to knock Cliff out, but Veronica comes back and reveals that she knows Cliff, which again reminds me of a vastly superior scene from the movie. Dante kicks Cliff out and tells Veronica why.
The guy's a narc and a coward. If you've gone to high school with him, you would know.
He explains that when they were in high school, it was tradition for seniors to vandalize a water tower, and Cliff brought Dante to do it with him, but when the cops showed up, he threw Dante under the bus.
Well, maybe he's changed. I mean, just because you're stuck in high school doesn't mean everyone is.
Normally, I'd agree with you, Veronica, but I have it on good authority that however people acted in high school is a really good litmus test for how they act their entire lives. But Veronica won't hear any of it and tells Dante that he should be more like Cliff, organized, charming, and above all, an adult. Though it's not very mature to taunt an old classmate for working a retail job, but then again, she didn't see that part. Veronica storms out, and the next day, Dante tells Randall that they got into a fight about his lack of prospects. He looks to Randall for guidance, but unlike in the film, this Randall is a quip machine who, like a bad Viner, can't go 6 seconds without telling a crappy joke.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking about pie.
He plans to take that job interview that his father set up, despite Randall's objections. Dante studies up for the interview, and Randall and Todd plan a party Thursday night at the Quick Stop. Dante tells him that they can't have it there because his interview is in the morning and he doesn't want to risk losing his job and the reference, and they get into an argument where Dante insults Randall and Todd. They have their party. Todd gets another shot with Sandra, and Dante mans the quick stop next door, where Ray attempts to shoplift a bag of ice for the party. Not Randall and Todd's party, but Cliff's party, where Veronica happens to be in attendance, and she's apparently getting kinda close to Cliff. Dante leaves Ray in charge of the store and rushes to the video store to get Randall and Todd so they can crash Cliff's party and show Veronica how much of a jerk Cliff really is. He convinces Randall and they drag Todd away from Sandra and head to the party. When they get there, Dante confronts Veronica and goads Cliff into vandalizing the water tower. Veronica goes up to talk them down before the cops show up. Cliff turns back into his weaselly, whiny self, and Dante stands triumphant.
There, now do you see?
What? What?
This! I had to show you what a weasel he is.
I knew that.
What, you did?
What, do you think I'm blind? It's obvious.
Hey!
Veronica tells Dante that she doesn't like Cliff, she just wanted Dante to show some initiative and stop being immature, and when the cop gets up there, Cliff begs Dante to take the fall, and reluctantly, Dante throws himself under the same bus that Cliff did in high school.
Hey, wait a minute, just wait a minute. Not him. He just came up here to talk me down.
During the ride in the squad car, where Veronica has oddly been arrested as well, which doesn't make any sense because I'd assume Dante would have taken the fall for her as well, but whatever. Dante tells Veronica that he'd understand if she broke up with him, but she tells him that she still loves him because he showed that he can be mature when he wants to. He tells her about the insurance job, but Veronica tells him not to do it because she wants him to have prospects, but prospects that he wants and not some boring job he takes out of obligation. The cop, it turns out, is a romantic at heart.
Come on, beat it! Before I change my mind.
And they get off scot-free as the credits roll, where the group watches a new movie at the video store. Surveillance footage from the quick stop where Ray shoplifts the entire store, including the security camera as the pilot ends. Well, let's see, the set design is actually pretty decent. Obviously, the original film had an advantage because it was filmed in an actual working convenience store, but all the sets look like real locations and don't reek of fakeness like some shows do. The music also isn't all that bad either, and I will admit that the plot isn't bad, and if it wasn't titled Clerks, it would probably be mediocre at best, but a decent, if derivative, sitcom. Let's just say that I can see why people call it Saved by the Clerks. And Kerry Russell is pretty good, even if she's given a crap character to play. Other than that... So the big thing is that the plot of Clerks doesn't really lend itself to an episodic series. The cartoon went a lot more exaggerated and fantastic, which worked to its benefit because it was the sort of thing that couldn't have been done in live action, and placed the familiar characters, all voiced by the original actors by the way, into interesting situations. It also helps that Kevin Smith was directly connected to that series. This tries to take the mundane story of Clerks, which worked as a movie because Dante learned a valuable lesson about life, and tries to turn it into a sitcom where, presumably, Dante would have had to learn that same lesson every week, which just doesn't work. I mean, would him and Veronica have a falling out every week? Would Dante constantly skirt responsibilities and never grow as a person? Because that's how episodic sitcoms work. Zach Morris never learned his lesson. He kept doing the same thing for 5 seasons and never grew as a person. Dante isn't like that, or at least he shouldn't be. He was a nuanced character, and what the hell is Dante even interested in anyway? The movies make it clear that he has some sort of aspirations and has some manner of enjoyment of his menial existence at the quick stop, given what happens in Clerks 2. But what about this Dante? He just wants to coast around. Speaking of characters not being right, Andrew Lowry's acting is sort of blah. Like he doesn't want to be there. In the film, Dante didn't want to be there either, but Brian O'Halloran's acting was still quality acting. Not to mention how he looks more like a jock than the slacker that Dante is supposed to be. In addition, Randall is a jerk in the movies, 100%, but in this, he is way more mean-spirited and douchey. None of the good qualities that Jeff Anderson's Randall had. He was an absolute dick. but he was also the voice of reason for Dante, and ultimately, even if he did screw up Dante's life, he was there to help Dante through the rough stuff. Jim Brewer's Randall is just there to make stupid jokes and quips. Not to mention that he looks 30, which he was just about, when Randall and Dante are supposed to be in their earliest 20s. But like, that bit with the spoiling of the movies, I don't think the original Randall would have done that, because he actually likes movies, and he wouldn't spoil stuff for a cheap gag. I also was not a fan of the new elements introduced for the sake of making it more sitcom-y, like Todd. He was boring stock, and I groaned every time he told a joke. Actually, I groaned every time he opened his damn mouth.
He's got silken hair that begs to be touched.
And don't even get me started on Ray. Ray is a poor replacement for Jay, and without Silent Bob, he just isn't funny. And I don't think I was ever clamoring to meet Dante's father. The only interesting thing about him is that he's played by the guy who played Al's lawyer in my favorite Quantum Leap episode. Not to mention how it lacks all the charm that the movie had. And it doesn't have any of the elements that made me love the movie. No long rants about geek culture, no constant shouting, no bizarre customers. Half the fun of the movie is all the weirdos that come into the store. You gotta bring into the reality that retail customers are weird and crazy, and that's like the one thing from the movie that they could have kept because it wasn't R-rated. Show us a weird customer. Where's the egg guidance counselor, the milkmaids, the creepy old man who died in the bathroom? Well, maybe not the last one, but you catch my drift, right? In addition, the show just isn't funny. I counted like maybe one funny joke in the entire 23-minute pilot. Yet it has the audacity to have a laugh track that tells me that it's supposed to be funny. Maybe I went into it cynical because Clerks is one of my favorite movies, but I just didn't find the jokes funny. And all that is probably because it was so toned down for TV since the original movie, with all the foul language, sex talk, and adult themes, would never be allowed to be on network TV, even today, let alone in 1995. The obvious answer is to not adapt Clerks into a sitcom, and some reviewers might leave it at that, but not me. My serious answer is that Clerks could work as a TV show. But maybe as a mini-series where we could develop characters and relationships and see weird customers. Even more than Smith came up with for the movie. The thing about Clerks is that while it's a great movie, there is a lot that could have been expanded on, and that could have been expanded on in a TV show. The aftermath of the original, taking place after the end of the movie. What happened on the next day that Dante worked. A TV show exploring that could be fun. But that's not what Touchstone wanted. They wanted their PG, appeal-to-teenagery sitcom, their answer to Saved by the Bell and its ilk. I know this doesn't feel like a lot of a fix because, well, it's so damn simple that I don't need to spend 3 paragraphs explaining it. Make it a proper adaptation, or don't bother. Expand on what we saw, the ramifications of the original film. Maybe a plotline adapting Dante's near-death experience from a revised version of the original ending. Yeah, if you've never seen the original ending, Dante was murdered in the first cut, shot by a robber. What if that did happen, but, without the dying part? That would be interesting. That would make for a really good episode of a TV show. Obviously, it should go without saying that I'd prefer if, HBO or Starz made it, because then they wouldn't have to tone down the adult content and could make it more like the film. And, of course, I'd prefer the original actors. In fact, both Brian O'Halloran and Jeff Anderson auditioned for the role of Dante, since Touchstone had already attached Jim Brewer to Randall. And that probably would have made the characters more tolerable, since they knew who these characters were. And, of course, it should go without saying that we should jettison Todd, Dante's dad, and Sandra. In all honesty, it's not the fact that they turned it into a TV show that makes it not work. It's the fact that they radically altered the story and tone to create something that spits in the face of the indie movie that we all know and love. And that was the Clerks sitcom pilot. An absolute mess of a pilot that lacked even a basic understanding of the film that it was purportedly trying to adapt. The plot of Clerks requires the long rants about geek pop culture, the monologues about Dante's crappy life, the jokes about how he's not even supposed to be here today. It doesn't need a tanning salon ditz, an ice cream attendant, and plots that were stock and boring in the 70s. If they actually cared about the premise of the film, it could have been great. But they just wanted the IP. Just like with Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, it bears little resemblance to what it shares a name with. But I will admit it was interesting to see how many times a studio can screw up the world's simplest premise. Next time, we're going to check out some comic books. Yes, you heard right, comic books, based on my second favorite 70s TV show, Emergency. See you next time. Check.